It was just past 5 a.m., the time when the lake still sleeps and the world is painted in dull blue morning fog, when I heard the low hum of electric motors creeping toward my property. At first, I thought it was fishermen or early kayakers cutting across the cove. But then I saw them, 3 golf carts rolling in slow formation down the gravel path like some kind of budget SWAT unit assembled from a retirement community. Amber lights flickered weakly on their roofs. Reflective vests glowed in the hazy dawn. And stenciled across the backs, in bold, self-important letters, were the words, HOA Karen. They looked like toddlers playing cops and robbers, except these toddlers had bolt cutters, laminated badges, and clipboards filled with rules they probably recited before bed. And right there, in full view of the rising light, they began unchaining my dock gate. My gate, the one on my land, bolted into my shoreline, deeded to me since long before any of them knew this neighborhood existed. It was the kind of boldness that only comes from people who have absolutely no idea what they're doing. I stepped out onto my porch, set my steaming cup of coffee beside me, and racked my shotgun. Action open, muzzle pointed safely at the ground. Not a threat, just a reminder that my property line wasn't a polite suggestion. They froze mid-snip, then pivoted, then ran. Golf carts squealing, caution tape flapping behind them like the sad parade streamers of cowards who thought they were heroes until real life happened. And in that moment, watching them flee, I knew 2 things. Today wasn't just another HOA stunt. They were about to start a war they genuinely believed they could win. They had no idea how wrong they were. My name is Caleb Rohn, and I live on the last property at the dead end of Timberline Hollow, a quiet, pine-lined road tucked into a lakeside community called Briar Ridge Cove. To most people, it's peaceful. To me, it's home. I've got a paid-off cabin, a dog that sleeps more than I do, and a workshop where I fix old fly reels for fun. I grill vegetables like they owe me rent, and I spend most mornings on my dock watching the world wake up. It's a simple life, a good life, and it would have stayed peaceful, if not for one group of people who make tyranny look like a hobby, the HOA. See, Briar Ridge used to be a relaxed lakeside community. But everything changes when the wrong person gets a taste of power. And in our case, that person was Lynette Harrow, HOA president, full-time menace and part-time dictator. She discovered that my deed included private shoreline rights, a rarity around here, and suddenly she developed what I can only describe as a chronic condition called public amenity envy. She didn't want her own dock. She wanted mine. She wanted it public. She wanted it accessible. And most importantly, she wanted it under her control. Lynette Harrow is the kind of woman who treats HOA bylaws like they're carved onto stone tablets brought down from a mountain. She walks around with a clipboard like it's a royal scepter, and her favorite pastime is policing other people's happiness. This is a woman who measured a neighbor's wind chimes with a sound meter phone app, reprimanded another for leaving a garden gnome facing the wrong direction, forced someone to repaint shutters because the color eggshell allegedly violated the covenant demanding ivory. That's who I was up against. So when she discovered that my privately owned dock sat perfectly on a scenic part of the cove, a place she had been eyeing for her dream public community lake access point, something snapped in her. She didn't ask. She demanded. She didn't negotiate. She schemed. And she became obsessed, truly obsessed, with reclaiming land she never owned and had no legal claim to. But I wasn't giving up my dock. Not for her. Not for the HOA. Not for anyone. And that refusal lit a fire under her that turned into a full-blown campaign. Started small. Pastel-colored memos tucked under my door, politely asking me to volunteer my dock for the betterment of the community. Translation: surrender your property so Lynette can brag at the next meeting. I tossed them in the recycling bin. Then she formed a new volunteer force called the Lake Safety Patrol, 3 retirees, 2 clipboards, and her nephew wearing aviator sunglasses like a knockoff mall cop. They cruised past my property at least twice a day, inspecting everything like they were expecting to find contraband. And soon enough, the citations began. Antisocial signage, referring to a simple private dock sign. Improper moorage aesthetics, for having a rope that wasn't the color she preferred. Un specify de non-compliance. My personal favorite. A violation that doesn't even describe what I supposedly violated. I saved every ticket in a folder labeled evidence of harassment. But Lynette wasn't done. Not even close. Her ego demanded escalation. Her obsession demanded victory. And that's when things took a darker turn. One morning, every house in the neighborhood woke up to a flyer shoved into their mailbox. Big bold letters declared, Seizure Day. Transition of non-compliant dock to HOA custody. It included a detailed timeline, a list of tools they planned to use, a sketch of my dock with arrows labeled Remove, and a fake notice of taking printed with a clip art state seal. A 5 a.m. raid. On my dock. On private land. She thought she could take my property by sheer force of bold cluelessness. But what she didn't know was this. I had already contacted the county sheriff, the county attorney, the state attorney general's office, and my lawyer. I didn't just know the law. I was ready, and I wasn't scared of her little HOA militia. Dawn broke. Fog curled off the lake. Birds stirred in the trees. And right on schedule, the HOA patrol rolled toward my dock again. Bolt cutters in hand, ready for their grand act of stupidity. But this time they weren't alone. A county deputy crested the hill behind them, his truck lights flashing silent authority. He stepped out, calm, tall, steady, and looked from them to me and then to the open shotgun resting safely against my porch rail. He nodded and said, Morning, Caleb. Mind putting that inside for me? Of course, I said. Then he turned toward the HOA patrol, and his voice changed. Hands off the property. Now. The bolt cutters fell first. Then the clipboards. Then the courage. Lynette's nephew tried to argue, whipping out his laminated authorization card, like it was some badge of power. The deputy took one look. This isn't a legal document, he said. This is lamination abuse. 3 seconds later, another truck pulled up, the county surveyor. He walked the shoreline, checked the markers, reviewed the deed, tapped my dock twice, and said, Private property, recorded since 1987. Case closed. And then she arrived, the queen of chaos herself, Lynette Harrow, marching down the path with printer paper maps, fake surveys, and a binder full of rules she probably wrote at midnight. The deputy peeled her fake notice off my gate like it was toxic waste and began listing her violations. Trespassing, impersonating legal authority, creating fraudulent documents. Her security team? Unlicensed, untrained, uninsured. Each member, 5,000 pesos fines. The insurance company called her mid-argument, told her they would not, under any circumstances, cover anything she had done. Her face collapsed like a cheap folding chair. The raid was over. She just didn't realize the fallout was only beginning. 2 weeks later, the HOA held an emergency hearing. My lawyer spread out the evidence like she was dealing cards in a Vegas magic act. Fake easements, fake surveys, fake notices, GoPro footage of them debating whether my dock was abandoned, because I wasn't physically hugging it at dawn. The board members turned pale enough to qualify as phantoms. Then the state attorney general's representative stood, adjusted his glasses, and read off every violation, including 3 misdemeanors, thousands in fines, probation, required community service, and mandatory enrollment in a civics class titled, What Eminent Domain is Not. The HOA voted unanimously to remove Lynette as president. Effective immediately, her laser pointer rolled off the table and clattered on the floor. She didn't even look at it. Her kingdom of petty power had fallen. The judge issued an injunction permanently protecting my property from any future HOA interference. He ordered damages. He ordered them to cover my legal fees. And he forced the HOA to hang a massive 4-foot banner at the community entrance reading, We do not have authority to seize private property. For 6 months, the HOA golf carts were repossessed and auctioned at the community sale. I bought one, paid $300 for it. I named it Due Process. Now the neighborhood is peaceful again. People wave. The lake is quiet. And my dock stands exactly where it's always stood, except now with a legal force field around it thicker than Lynette's stress wrinkles. And every sunrise, when I sit at the end of that dock with a mug of coffee, I remember one thing: bullies count on silence. But all it takes is one person who knows the law to end their little kingdom.